everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Julia and I make video essays and analysis about TV series, movies and pop culture in general. So today I want to talk about the OA because I've been following the OA since the very beginning, and that's because I'm a huge Brit Marling fan. And if you find out about Brit Marling through the OA alone, I do suggest you watch some of her previous stuff as well, such as The East. Even though this one was quite a little bit disappointing for me, but this one, Another Earth, which is one of my favorite movies ever made, which does have the OA's vibes as well. It took me a little bit longer than usual to make this video since the second season came out, and that's because I rewatched the first and the second season something like 5 times, taking notes. So buckle up because this video is going to be intense. So the first part of the video will focus on what will happen in season 3 and the clues that we've been given so far, and that's essential to understand what the whole purpose of the OA and the series is about. But first, let's do a quick rundown of the first and second season, really quick, something like about a minute, just to make sure that we're all caught up. So according to how was shown in the series, season 1, Dimension 1, which from this point onwards we'll call D1, was the one in which Prairie, Homer and other 3 people were held captive by Hap and forced to die again and again in his NDE experiments. In this dimension, Prairie was adopted by Abel and Nancy following the death of her father. She was blind, therefore the bus crash accident happened, and her Russian origins as well as her original name, Nina Azorova, were left behind. We are shown in D1 how Prairie searches for other 5 people to perform the movements in order to apparently jump into another dimension to go back to Homer and the others, which themselves have jumped in Dimension 2, D2, which takes place in San Francisco. The 5 people that Prairie gathers are the so-called Crestwood 5: Buck, French, Steven, Jesse and BB-8. We're led to believe that they learned the movements, and by the end of season 1/D1 they successfully performed them and helped the OA travel through D2 in San Francisco. In season 2, D2, Prairie jumps into Nina Azorova's body, a version of herself that never went blind because she never got into the bus that day, and so she didn't have an NDE experience as a child. Given also that her father didn't die when she was little, Nina grows up to be a wealthy writer that collaborates with Dr. Percy. However, Hap does jump into Dr. Percy's body, and he continues in his own way to work on Nina's and Pierre Ruskin's experiment over the house on Nob Hill, which we later find out literally awakens a seed inside of people's brains that Hap uses to create a pool garden of interdimensional paths. Because of this newfound knowledge, Hap can finally bring the OA into the only dimension, D3, in which apparently the OA doesn't hate him, but is possibly married to him, as we and Hap know from Scott's NDE. So in D3, Hap, the OA and Buck are all the actual actors that play the characters in a production TV set, in the Netflix production TV set. This is also where the Michelle of D2 was taken by the house and is finally saved by Kareem at the end of D2, bringing her back to her rightful dimension. Now, the big reveal at the end of season 2, the overview as Pierre Ruskins call it, is that the realities that we've been shown previously in other dimensions are somehow fake, a work of fiction. So the OA in season 3/D3 will make use of metafiction, the idea of permeability of the fourth wall on some level, even though it's already quite clear that D3 won't exactly be our dimension. As in our reality, for example, Brit and Jason are not married and he's not British. Now, season 1 is much different than season 2, and season 3 we already know that it's taking a completely different direction. And this is not just in terms of genre, with D1 being more of a drama and D2 reminiscing more of noir films, but also in terms of actual shooting techniques, film grains and aspect ratio, which is completely different in all seasons/dimensions. Why? Well, this is because each one not only represents a different dimension, but a different level of understanding. Just like the house on Notting Hill is a metaphor for enlightenment, starting with a coffin-sized tunnel at our birth, then reaching a spiral staircase representative of the complexity of life, and finally opening the window to gain that infamous overview that is the ultimate answer. The OA journey, similar to other media, which rely on themes of simulation theories like The Truman Show or The Matrix, is about almost going through a set of levels to arrive at a conclusion that shatters your previous view of reality. What's even more interesting in this sense is that in season 2, Elodie makes the OA understand that she needs to integrate with all of her alt-dimensional selves in order to succeed. Prairie / the OA does that in season 2 when she finally welcomes Nina. This would mean that season 3 narrative would likely be the OA trying to integrate with Brit, the actress. But in order to do that and in order to succeed, the tree in Dimension 2 season 2 tells the OA that she can do it by herself. She needs the help of a tribe, which we assume are the Crestwood Five. But it could also be us, considering the way in which season 3 will play with breaking the fourth wall. What are fans if not a tribe of followers? After all, the official OA Twitter account already posted a tweet asking us, "Can you help me remember?" There is also the fact that at the beginning of season 2, Fola tells Karim that at a certain point the game goes IRL, in real life.
I gotta find her. I gotta find out what happened to her.
Well, then you need to go where she went.
Where does she go?
At a certain point, the puzzle goes IRL.
What's IRL?
In real life.
There is the fact that when in Dimension 2 season 2 the OA sees herself as Brit in the plane, this is during the vision that All Night presents to her. The people around her in the plane are watching Netflix. Finally, there is the fact that the flight BA411 that Karim uses in the first part of the game in season 2 is the code of a real 2016 flight, 2016 being the same year that D2 takes place in, that arrives to London, the location in which D3 is actually taking place in. It is possible that all of this points to us as in the audience, having some sort of online control in season 3 to help the OA rediscover through self, very much as Black Mirror did in the past season with Bandersnatch. What does this mean to the overall plot though, and does this mean that season 3 will be the last one? I don't think so. Season 3, Dimension 3 will probably be the next step of enlightenment for the OA. There are probably going to be 5 seasons, that is, if Netflix will be kind enough not to cancel this show. 5 as the 5 paths that need to be aligned by the OA and Karim to unlock the Nobile house. 5 as the 5 cracks in the window glass when Prairie gets shot in season 1. The medium in season 2 mentions the theory of multiple heavens, a belief according to which there are heavens above heavens, one on top of the other. In the same way, the series is pointing towards a nested reality, a layered framework which the OA is traveling through. So the key to understanding the OA, as in the whole series, is not to see it as linear, a season by season, dimension by dimension story, but rather as a set of Matryoshkian levels. Is Matryoshkian even a word? You know what I mean, whereby the travelers are not only moving forward, but are also expanding the reality sphere in which they operate in. Because of this, the series is clearly not as linear as it would like to appear, because the so-called echoes in each dimension represent slightly different loops for the OA to travel through, which means that chronological order is kind of a bitch. The OA clearly has a mission, but the series distracts us into making us believe that said mission is about defeating Hap, rescuing Homer, and reunite with him, while I actually believe that the OA's mission is related to her premonitions. However, we are shown specifically in season 1 that the OA doesn't understand these premonitions until it's too late. The first one she has when she's a child, and is the one about the bus crash where 5 innocents needed to be saved. She fails dies and meets Khatun. That provides her, as she will also do later on many other times, the chance to go back to complete her mission. Elias in season 1, which is, by the way, someone that is clearly sent to help DOA, says to her that these premonitions come at critical times in her life, and in fact they've always come and allude to the chance to save 5 people. The first being saving the 4 kids and driver, making it 5 in the bus crash. The second being obviously when they are held in captivity by Hap. And the third is about saving the Crestwood 5 from the school shooting. This would also explain why these situations that the OA needs to intervene in are all similar to one another, or in the OA jargon are echoes of one another. The kids are trapped underwater. The angels are drowned by Hap and are held captive in what essentially looks like a fish tank. But unlike the first 2 times in which the OA either missed or misinterpreted her premonitions, at the end of season 1, we see what we think is Prairie finally understanding the premonition and running to save the Crestwood 5 from the school shooting.
I had the dream again. I know what it is now.
And here's your loop. The ending of season 1 is not actually the beginning of the series, but rather the end of the whole series. We can see how in the cafeteria scene, the Crestwood 5 make the 5 movements and the OA doesn't. She is shot because in order to save the 5 innocent lives, she understood that she must die.
Now you know sacrifice. Now you are ready for what comes with this gift.
We see how the environment changes, which we're led to believe is because of Prairie's jump into the new dimension, but is actually the arrival to her new final destination. She's finally allowed to move on, whatever the hell that means, and we see at the end of season 1 how that's represented by an all-white background and the OA apparently seeing Homer and finally being reunited with him.
Homer?
So we're led to believe that at the end of season 1, she dies and goes back to the new dimension as Nina, and dimension 2 starts. But that's a trick, a chronological order mismatch. This would also explain why at the beginning of season 1, which at this point I do not believe is the one, when the nurse asks her for her name, she says it's the OA, and she's pretty calm.
What's your name?
I'm the OA.
Whereas in season 2, when she asks her the same question, she says it's Prairie.
Can you tell me your name?
Prairie Johnson.
This would also explain why in season 1, Prairie/the OA is more wise and knowledgeable in certain parts and more innocent and naive in others. The scene where she calms Steve's dog, for example, is something that Nina Azarova could do, because in season 2 we find out that she's a medium that can communicate with plants and animals, and that in order for the OA to succeed, she needs to integrate with her, absorbing her identity, her memories, and her abilities.
You're good. You're okay.
I believe that in season 1, the OA finally integrated with all 5 versions of herself, 3 of which we have already seen, Prairie, Nina, and Britt, coming up, and 2 of which that we'll still need to find out. That's why at the end of the second season, the OA, which is now integrated with Prairie and Nina, starts to ascend, because she is finally starting to integrate and continuing her journey of enlightenment. So the more the OA integrates, the more she becomes powerful and knowledgeable, something which, by the way, Khatun foreshadows in season 1, when she tells her that all 5 of you needs to work together.
All 5 of you must work together as one to avert a great evil.
There's only 4 of them.
You will see.
And we automatically assume that she talks about Prairie and the Crestwood Five. When Evelyn, the sheriff's wife in season 1, explains to Homer and Prairie, her NDE, she says that a little girl told her that one day she would help 2 captive angels, and she gave her the 5th movement. That little girl is the OA. Likewise, in season 1, when little Prairie is sleepwalking and talking in Russian, she says, and this is a rough translation, "I'm going to find you. I'll start in the old house, or maybe in the grandfather's farm, or in the old mine." Possibly talking about Homer, the old mine being the place where Hap held them captive.
I tell you, I never thought I'd see this old mine looking so homey.
And the old house being the one on Nob Hill. This all suggests that the OA knew things that she couldn't possibly know if we take into consideration a linear timeline. However, if we consider the loop theory and the fact that it's more of an elliptical timeline of sort, then it all makes sense. Just like the T.S. Eliot quote that Kareem reads engraved on the door in the Nob Hill house says, "We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time." What do you think about this? Let me know in the comments below. And as usual, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more from me, make sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified when my next video is going to be up. Also, very quickly, I want to say to whoever is waiting for a specific video that they requested, don't worry, I have them all written down. I'm doing my best. So they will come sometime soon, hopefully. Bye.